Hello, everyone, or anyone. It's always, as always, Gordon Causey coming to you live and unscripted from my little corner of southeastern Ontario, Canada, with Candy the Wonder Pup. Before I get started, should do this beforehand, but as I like to call this, this is my miserable and pathetic little YouTube channel, zero production values, something I'm going to talk a bit about tonight. So first, let's improve the backdrop a little, and let's take care of Candy. I've had comments before. People like Candy. Oh, she's so adorable. Come here. She doesn't, of course, she doesn't know she's going live on the internet. Here she is. She is she's half border collie, half Aussie shepherd, which means very smart. But as I have discovered over the last 3 years, dogs being very smart does not necessarily mean they are very obedient. At any rate, sit, lay down. Come here, Paul. Lay down. Speak. There we go. And that, as I always say, that buys me peace. Thank you for watching. Today is now the 16th, Sunday, the 16th of July. It is 11:32 p.m. And I have called this freewheeling Sunday. And what I'm going to be talking about are just things that have come into my mind over the past week, what's happening in the news, etc., and very open-ended. And one of the points I wanted to cover tonight is, why do I do these videos? Why do I have a YouTube channel? Why do I put my thoughts out there? I've mentioned many times that this station isn't monetized. What I believe that means is my videos, even if they go half an hour, 45 minutes, there shouldn't be any ads showing up on them at all, which is how I understand, other content. Monetized content has ads at the beginning of it. You go and you want to watch a video, and there's always an ad. Now, I don't know if that happens with my content or not. It would kind of bug me if it does, but at the same time, I'm putting this out there at no cost to myself beyond, what I pay my ISP for connectivity to the internet. But why do I do this? Not making any money at it. And I guess there are a number of reasons. There's a desire on my part. I want to be part of the public discourse. And a lot of the time when I look at mainstream, what I call mainstream legacy media, it's not just me who calls them that, lots of people use those terms, but the mainstream legacy media, a lot of times what I see them putting out, I don't see them covering the things that I want covered. And the things that they do cover, often I'm in disagreement with the way in which they're covering it, with the focus that they put on things, with the things they ignore. Often I find mainstream media either completely ignores one side of an issue, or if they do cover it, they'll do it in a very negative, pejorative fashion, and that gets on my case. I consider it propaganda. I consider it disinformation. I'll give an example. It was in 2021, and at the time when Health Canada and all the provincial health agencies, when everyone was being exhorted, bribed, and doing anything and everything they could to get everyone to roll up their sleeves, there was a jurisdiction in Ontario called Malahide Township. It's down south of London, Ontario, down in southwestern Ontario. And it had either the lowest rate of vaccination in all of Ontario, or certainly one of the lowest. And CBC News did an article or did a news story on it on the CBC Nightly News. And they spoke with that area, Malahide Township's top doctor, their chief doctor, whatever it's called, public health top dog. And they talked to a local medical doctor, someone I'm assuming was a GP, a general practitioner, family doctor. And they were giving all the reasons why they believe that a person should get the shots. And then for the counter side, they spoke to a gentleman who was swinging a 2-3-year-old child on his arm while talking to a reporter in a public park. And this gentleman they were speaking to me, he sounded Eastern European. English was certainly his second language. And this is what, and then the other individual they spoke to was a pastor from the area whose church had been defying the orders to not gather and had continued to gather. And I know the gentleman, I know the pastor. I wouldn't say, I think it would be too much to say that we're friends, but at the same time, I think we're more than acquaintances. We've broken bread together. We've sat down and had dinner together. I've been to his place of residence, and I even stayed over with members of that congregation because it's a long drive for me. So, but regardless, this gentleman's name is Henry, was the other individual interviewed on CBC News, and some Eastern European immigrant and a pastor of a church are hardly what one would consider to be medical experts. And this is typically what's referred to as the straw man fallacy, where when you're trying to push a point of view, you do everything possible to make the contrary point of view look weak. Straw man. Tear it apart easily. It burns, light a match and it burns in seconds. And that really annoys me, because they could have spoken to Dr. Byron Bridle. They could have talked to Michael Yeadon. They could have talked to Robert Malone. They could have talked to countless. There are thousands of doctors and doctors. There's a gentleman who I have an enormous amount of respect for. His name is Dr. Francis Christian, a teaching physician at the University of Saskatchewan. Did I say teaching physician? A teaching surgeon at the University of Saskatchewan, and also the editor, a co-editor, but an editor of a medical journal. So you're talking about someone eminently qualified in his domain. And that gentleman's name is Dr. Francis Christian, and he was a teaching surgeon at the University of Saskatchewan. But when he came out and dared to question the need, or whether or not it was worth it to for young people, kids, to get the COVID shots, he had his license, his privileges at the university removed, and all kinds of punitive actions were taken against him. So why not give someone of that, with those bona fides, a microphone, and let them address instead? But this is the way our mainstream legacy media is doing things, and it's not just on matters of COVID or the jabs or whatever. They do this in all manner of areas. I have said it many times on this channel that they tell people what to think, what to believe, and even how to feel. And so in putting out my videos, all I'm doing is trying to inject myself into the public discourse somewhat. I realize this is a miserable, and again, I use these words often, my miserable and pathetic little YouTube channel that right now nobody is watching. And the question has come, when it comes to the question of monetization, I don't even know what's involved in monetizing a channel. I imagine it's a few clicks, fill out forms, banking info, perhaps. I don't know. But admittedly, I have thought about it, and I'm not a communist. I'm not averse to money. Who is? However, the thought has occurred to me. I did a video yesterday, and I believe the title was something along the lines of, is it possible that the anti-vaxxers were right all along? And once I do a video, typically will replay it back to myself and kind of get an impression. Do I think it was good, bad, or otherwise? And I didn't think this was anything special. And my videos normally get a dozen, maybe two or three dozen, maybe 50 views. That would be good. The odd one here and there will get up in and around 100. And wow, 100. Certainly I'm no competition, obviously, for Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro or David Rubin or the Young Turks or any of these other outlets. But 100 for me, that's big time. In this video that I did yesterday on asking the question, is it possible we're anti-vaxxers right all along? That's been viewed close to 200 times within just less than 24 hours. And what would happen, what I fear would happen if that did, if I were to monetize, then I think it would be unavoidable that I would be influenced as to the content I'm putting out. Right now, the content that I'm putting out, it's stuff that I am genuinely thinking about, looking into, my thoughts, my views, my concerns. But if a station is monetized, well, then you're going to try and gear your content to what people want. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be pandering, for lack of a better word. And the first news item that comes to mind from this past week speaks to this. Just today, we had family come over, my in-laws, a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law came over to visit the house. And I asked my brother-in-law, who's a gentleman who watches the news, he knows what's going on in the world. And I asked him if he knew about the Dow Chemical plant in Louisiana, situated somewhere on the Mississippi River or in close proximity to it. I asked him if he knew about the massive explosion and the fact that ethylene oxide, I think, is the chemical that they primarily produce, about potentially smoke billowing into the air poisoned with ethylene oxide, or however you pronounce that. And he'd heard nothing of it. And I've scoured news sites, and I see that it is getting some coverage. Local media outlets in places like Texas and Louisiana are covering it, but I don't see anything on CBS Nightly News, ABC, NBC, CNN. Don't see anything on the Canadian media side. Now, I don't have television. I don't have satellite or cable, so I don't watch the nightly news. Typically, what I will do is go on to do a Google News search when a news story, when a news item, when I want to inform myself about something. And in terms of this chemical plant explosion, apparently multiple fires, the amount of reporting would fit into a thimble. And it begs the question, we've all heard that familiar saying, or that question, that paradoxical question of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make any sound? So the question I ask is, if a major event happens, but it doesn't get reported, did it really happen? And it's very much akin to that. The argument is, well, sound waves have to interact on some type of microphone, like your ear has to, in order, because sound is something that registers in the brain. And so if a major event happens but no one knows about it, did it really even happen? It might as well not have in the minds of many people. And this gets back to what I said earlier and have said often about the news telling us what to think, what to believe, and even how to feel. If they wanted this to be a major news story, I think it would be easy to blow it up into a major news story. And yet, for whatever reason, it's been quiet. Now, Dow Chemical, are they? I don't know all the products that Dow Chemical makes, but it's a lot. And how many of those products that they make are things that are advertised on ABC, NBC, CBS, same in Canada, CTV, Global TV, even CBC is somewhat reliant on advertising dollars. It's not like PBS in the States where you have programming without advertising. Our Canadian CBC News, government funded to the tune of $1 billion plus a year, they still, that billion plus that they get every year to run their media enterprise isn't enough, and they sell advertising. And so I have to question, is the reason we're not hearing about this Dow Chemical plant in Louisiana exploding, is it because of financial interest and not wanting to bite the hand that feeds? This is all about, we get one side of the narrative. And another thing rattling around in my brain this past week has been, and I've done videos on this as well, this whole transgender ideology. And it strikes me that now we have mainstream media will refer to an individual XY chromosomes as she, if that's what that person says they want to be identified as. Some guy says he wants to be identified as a woman, and then our media starts referring to that individual as she and her instead of he and him. And my views are fairly well known on this. I think at least anyone who's watched any of my previous videos talking about this or anything I've written on the topic knows that, you cannot divorce yourself from objective reality. If you do, it's delusional. And there are delusional people out there, but there are certain things that are fixed. Your height, your hair color or quantity thereof, eye color, your blood type. I can't identify as a long-haired, 7-foot tall person with O-type blood and green eyes, because that's not reality. Reality is I'm 5'11" or so, a little over 5'11". I'm bald, I have blue eyes, my blood type is my blood type. I can't change these. And now, can I be deluded and can I believe that I'm 7 foot? I guess. Sure, I could say to the world, I did a video where I jokingly said that I'm now self-identifying as 7 foot tall, but that doesn't make it reality. But in today's world, maybe it could. I was at church today, and the pastor at our church made reference to this being a post-truth world. The truth is now subjective. Objective reality has been thrown out the window. And it's maddening. And it comes down at the end of the day to a question of identity. And for a Christian, for a person who believes in a creator God, there are two competing narratives out there broadly speaking. There are those who believe in a creator God and those who do not. And for those who do not, everything is an accident. There was a big bang. Matter just kind of floated around for billions of years. And then something happened. Order, out of this chaos came order. And things went from a disordered state into a highly precise and ordered state, which what I know of the laws of thermodynamics says that things move from order to disorder, not the other way around. But that's the theory, is that this highly chaotic blah, blah, blah stuff just floating around in space. And then somehow order was achieved. And then another, random crazy event happened that all of a sudden sparked life somehow. Somehow life just sparked. Call it spontaneous generation, if you like, which science has tried to prove. I mean, Darwin's theories of Darwin's theory, singular, Darwin's theory of evolution is predicated on this notion of spontaneous generation, that simple microbial or single-celled life forms just magically came into being somehow. And scientists have tried for ages, going back to Louis Pasteur, both and probably before and after, trying to prove that you can animate lifeless matter. And every experiment that's attempted to prove that hypothesis has failed. And so it has led to what has been determined to be scientific fact, and it will remain scientific fact until someone is able to prove otherwise. And that is that only life can create life. You can't take inert, lifeless matter and magically bring it to life. But that's the theory. And then the theory goes on further that this lifeless matter that suddenly magically came to life, that then there were a bunch of random mutations, just random accidents. And you have incredibly mind-blowingly complex life forms that, like look at something as simple as a mosquito and the precision and the beauty of it in a fashion, if you consider the intricacy and how prolific they are, or a hummingbird. And then you can go to the other end of the scale and you look at a blue whale or a humpback whale or an elephant, and everything is random accident. This is the atheistic worldview. It wasn't a creator God, that everything just came about by random accidents, just countless, billions, trillions probably of random little accidents. And this incredibly precise, intellectually, I can't accept that just the precision is just, and the order of this universe and this world that we live in is simply too mind-blowing to think that it could have been an accident. And that's my reason that's the reason why I believe in creation versus Big Bang and random accidents leading to evolution. Now, in fairness, I'm not one who likes to build straw man. I try to be respectful to the opinion that I disagree with, and I endeavor to be fair. And but I have to acknowledge that I have my bias. I have a creationist bias. But in fairness, the reason why proponents of evolution and this idea that, this fact that they've never been able to animate lifeless matter, and this resulting in this scientific truth that only life can create life, those who still cling to the evolutionist view have come up with an idea, and it's called abiogenesis. ABIO, abiogenesis. And what the theory of abiogenesis contends is that the conditions needed for lifeless matter to come to life did exist, but only for a finite period of time, and they don't exist anymore. And because those conditions needed for lifeless matter to come to life don't exist anymore, it's impossible to test that hypothesis. It's impossible to do any type of experiment because the conditions needed for the experiment to work don't exist. They only existed billions of years ago. The interesting, and to use the word paradoxical again, the paradox here is that someone believing in this abiogenesis theory has to accept it on blind faith. And that is what my creationist view has to be put forth. I cannot prove that there was a creation. Or, well, I cannot prove there is a creation. I can prove that there are mosquitoes and hummingbirds and blue whales and elephants. Yes, creation exists, if you want to call it creation, but I can't prove the creator. I can't prove it. The same as the evolutionary types cannot prove abiogenesis. So it's a paradox on both sides. But in a world where there is no creator, where there is no God, where everything just came into being by a series of almost endless random accidents, well, then what is truth? Why not just make it subjective? If someone is born a man or male and decides in of themselves that, well, a mistake was made, which I can't understand, because if you don't believe in God, how can anyone have made a mistake? But who cares? I want to be a woman. And so, and I am what I say I am. I am that which I say I am. I got to always cite my sources. There's a book in the Bible called Ecclesiastes, which is one of my favorite books in the Bible, written by Solomon. And in the book, Solomon is saying there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is just chasing the wind. It's all just vanity. I have nothing new. Everything that I say has been said hundreds of times over. Anything I thought, even if I have a thought organically on my own, it's likely or almost certainly it's been expressed before and probably expressed better than I have. But anyway, it's interesting in this world where people declare, well, I am what I say I am. Whatever I say I am, that I say I am, I am. Well, when Moses stood before the burning bush, if you're familiar with Exodus or the movie The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, when Moses asked God, he said, when I go to your people, when I go to, the children of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, when I go to them, they're going to ask me your name. What name shall I give them? Moses wanted a name. And God simply said, I am that I am. And now we have individuals saying, I am what I say I am. I am that I am. There's people talk about God complex. We got people who want to divorce not just themselves, but they want you to bow down to whatever perception they have of themselves and accept a man as a woman. Anyone following these issues will probably know, and I forget exactly where it was, but it was the United States, and it was a girl on the swimming team, 16 years of age, who was upset about there being a male in the shower. And when I say a male, I'm talking a guy with a penis and testicles. And I don't know if you remember being 16 years of age, but a lot of teenagers, male and female both, are uncomfortable with their bodies and being shy, and things like nudity are difficult. And here she is being forced to share a shower, and apparently she was kicked out. She was the one punished over the fact that she wanted the guy not to be able to use the girls' shower facilities or changing facilities, the locker room. And this is the type of world that we are in. And this is wrong. And a lot of people believe it. But the thing is, if you go into the mainstream media, the legacy media, this agenda is being pushed on us. It's being driven into our school systems. It's being driven into the corporate space, into the media space, into the political space. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. This idea that and for someone like myself who is a professing Christian, and that is to say, I profess and avow Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And to me, this whole transgender movement ideology is poking God in the eye. And I saw something today that just filled me up, made me feel good. And what it was a local church in my town, not the church I attend, but I have gone to many services there, is having it's called Vacation Bible School, VBS. And the theme of their Vacation Bible School is treasured. You are treasured. And I went and I listened to some of the music that they play for the kids. And it's talking about how much God treasures you. And this is the message that they're going to be delivering to kids over a week, over a period of a Monday to Friday. And I have my youngest is still in grammar school, public school. He'll be attending because that's a message I want him to hear. That you are treasured, you are valuable, you are loved. You are loved by God, and God's love is perfect. I'm a flawed and fallen creature, and I love my son dearly. I love my youngest. I love all my children, but I love my kids to the moon and back. Put it however you want, but even still, that does not touch the degree to which God's perfect love touches, and not just children, all of us. And the thing is, if you get into God's word, read a book, one of the books of the Bible, Jeremiah, prophet, and go to verse 29, verse 11. It's a well-known chapter and verse from Jeremiah. And I don't know it word for word, and there are so many different New International Version, New Living Translation, English Standard Revised, etc., King James. So I don't know the words exactly, but it is this: thus saith the Lord, know that the plans that I have for you are plans that are for your welfare, plans to give you a future and a hope. And is it loving? Gender confusion is nothing new. It has always existed. Children, and especially as they move into adolescence and this dissatisfaction with our bodies, I'm convinced it's as close to being universal as anything can be. My ears are too big, my thighs are too big, my butt's too big, whatever. Girls, I'm overdeveloped, I'm underdeveloped. Guys are worried about, size and everything. And there's this. And so to take individuals in that fragile state and to confirm delusional thinking is not loving. It is cruel. And then to prescribe for these kids puberty blockers, just because medical science has advanced advanced to such a degree, and just because we are learning more and more and more about God's wonderful and miraculous creation, just because we're learning more and more, doesn't ethically give us we have the ability, but wisdom and discernment would say not to go there and prescribe a child puberty blockers, which are proven to reduce bone density. Imagine a child, a developing child, either prepubescent or pubescent. They're still developing, they're still growing, and you're going to give them drugs that reduce bone density. Now, I don't have any medical degrees, but that sounds to me like osteoporosis, which is a disease of older women. And so this is one of the reasons I do my videos. And it also allows me to practice, if you will, because I talk about this live and in person with people. And so it helps to work through these, because so many people now are tapping out and they're saying, well, you know what, they're telling us that gender is a societal construct, and there are guys who are somewhat effeminate, and there are women who have masculine traits and such. And yes, that's true. That's true. There's a spectrum of masculinity, of masculine behaviors, and a spectrum of feminine traits and behaviors. But it doesn't change objective, physical, biological reality. Agreeableness is something that is typically, which is identified as a feminine trait, whereas confrontation, being confrontational is identified as a male trait. But are there women who are confrontational? Of course there are. And are there men who are highly agreeable and don't want to? I have a high agreeability. I'm high, and that doesn't make me a woman. And to push this on kids and to tell them it's normal, the loving thing to do with a child who's confused over their gender and think that a mistake was made somehow, and that a girl thinking she should have been a boy, or a boy thinking you should have been a girl, or thinking that, well, on Mondays I feel like a boy and on Tuesday this fluid stuff. I equate it to a parent spoiling their children and giving them whatever they want. And how happy and well adjusted is that child going to grow up to be if their every want, need, desire, whim is catered to? And they are not going to do well. And that's where I bring up Jeremiah 29, verse 11. Know that the plans that I have for you, plans to give you a future and a hope, plans for your welfare. I have my Bible right here. I should look it up. This is the English Standard Revised. So we got Isaiah. I think it's after Isaiah. Yeah, Jeremiah 29. And there's 29. So here it is, Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. I'm going to end my video here. What better way than with reading words that have endured for thousands of years? Jeremiah, this is probably written 2,500 years ago. First written. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. That's now, some translations take that word welfare and they put it as prosper. I have Paul E. commenting, and he's saying, outside of biblical discussions, going along with the child's insistence of being the opposite gender is akin to agreeing with a teenage girl's insistence that being 60 pounds is too fat. Polly is bringing up anorexia or bulimia. Well, I think anorexia is the condition and bulimia is a behavior that can result from it. I do know that biblical teaching and such is out of favor in today's world. And I acknowledge that. I know that's reality. But I've had family members, not immediate family, but I've had a family member with anorexia, so I'm somewhat familiar with it. Never going to claim to be an expert on it. I think we've all seen episodes of. I think the TV show was called Idol, American Idol, Canadian Idol, the first iteration where the kids would go up and sing and they'd audition and then maybe get to go on the show and then get voted on, et cetera, et cetera. We all know it. Claude Aiken. I can't recall. Kelly Clarkson, I think, was the first winner. You know the show I'm talking about. And we've all seen those shows, or a lot of people I'm sure will have seen the auditions they show. And some of the auditions they showed could be fingernails on a blackboard. Oh, some people can't sing. I'm one of them. And but the self-impression that the person has is, I'm a great singer. And we've seen it. They go up there, they sing, they draw their nails across the chalkboard, and the judges, whoever it was at the time, they tell them straight up, be honest with them and say, you're not a good singer. And some of the individuals, you'd say, I am a good singer. My mother told me I am a good singer. And then they would walk off, and then they'd be interviewed, on camera by someone. What did you think about what Simon or about what so-and-so said to you? I don't care what he says. I'm a great singer, and I'm going to make it in this industry no matter what, blah, 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 because I know. And scary world. Polly is further saying, parents who cannot set their child straight when he or she insists on nonsensical beliefs are failing their children. And amen, which simply means so be it. An affirmation, you're bang on the money. But this is the world we live in, and it's not changing. Because there's an agenda out there. It's called UN Agenda 2030 for anyone who wants to look it up. And there are the UN Sustainable Development Goals that are built into UN Agenda 2030. And basically, anyone who thinks this is over, that the insanity that we've been living for these last 3, 4, 5 years, that it's over, well, it's not. We're very early into the game. 2030 is 6.5 years away. And this is all happening for a reason. The bedrock of society, the foundation of our society, of this Western world, is being torn down. And this great reset is all about ushering in, for lack of a better expression, a new world order, which are words that have been used going all the way back to George H.W. Bush. He was president from 1988 to 1992, father of George W. Bush. And he, during one of his addresses, and might have been one of those, what do they call them, State of the Union type addresses, and he made reference to a new world order. This has been in the works, I would argue, since the end of World War II. I think the World War II was an attempt at it, an attempt that failed. And ever since World War II, they've been moving in baby steps. And now those baby steps are getting bolder. And I think we're going to see them get bolder and bolder. And I think there's more insanity to come. So anyway, Paul E., thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate. I don't know how we've engaged, whether it's through Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, but regardless, thank you for chiming in. And I'm probably going to do another one of these next week. I really appreciate And, I said at the beginning, why am I doing these videos? It's because I want to inject myself into the public discourse. I want to put my thoughts, views, and opinions out there. And so I want to say, I'm not doing it again. The station isn't monetized. I just enjoy, I like trying to get my voice out there, even if it is a fart in a hurricane, even if I am tilting at windmills. And so Paul found me randomly, according to his comment. Awesome. However it happens, it happens. And he subscribed. And thank you to everyone who subscribes, because I'm not going to pay a subscriber service to inundate me with bots so that my number goes up to 892 or 8,000 or 80,000, which are services that are available to creators. And you can have server farms pound your channel so that your views go way up. They hit it with non-static IPs, bang, 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 bang. So within nanoseconds of a video being uploaded, you can have 10,000, 80,000, 100,000 views. I'm not playing those games. I just genuinely appreciate gentlemen like Paul and everyone who's subscribed, who gives likes, because apparently that helps raise your profile, makes you more searchable, and things of that nature. So I'm going to be doing these Sunday nights, and hopefully they'll get better. I could go on, but I'm going to stop because I'm long-winded. Good night. God bless, and we'll talk to you again.